The topic which I am going to deliver the lecture is on chemical bonding. Following are the modules of the lecture: introduction, types of bonds. In types of bonds, we will be discussing about ionic bonding, covalent bonding, metallic bonding, van der Waals bonding, hydrogen bonding, and the last module of the lecture is conclusions. Now, let me start with the introduction. Chemistry of the crystals is best understood by the nature of chemical bonding. The chemical substances are made up of two or more atoms, and the attraction between the atoms results in chemical bond. Combining of two or more atoms produces a chemical compound. A stable compound occurs when the total energy of the combination has lower energy than the separated atoms. Now, let us discuss how these atoms and molecules hold together. Atoms and molecules of the substances are held together by bonds. There are different kinds of bonds. The type of bond seen in elements and compounds depends on the chemical properties as well as the attractive forces governing the atoms and molecules. The types of chemical bonds are ionic bond, covalent bond, metallic bond, van der Waals bond, and hydrogen bond. In order to understand bonds, one must be familiar with electron properties, including valence shell electrons. The outermost layer or shell of an electron represents the valence shell of an atom. Though today scientists generally agree that electrons do not rotate around the nucleus, it was thought throughout history that each electron orbited the nucleus of an atom in a separate layer or shell. Today, scientists have concluded that electrons hover in specific areas of the atom and do not form orbits. However, the valence shell is still used to describe electron availability. Periodic table gives the number of electrons that each atom possesses. In order to determine an element's periodic properties, you need the assistance of a periodic table. After you have found your periodic table, look at the Roman numerals above each column of the table. You should see that above hydrogen there is a 1A, above beryllium there is a 2A, above boron there is a 3A, and so on all the way to fluorine, which is 7A. Also note that the metals are all in group B. Their Roman numerals have the letter B afterwards instead of the letter A. For now, we are going to ignore the columns with an B and focus on the columns with an A, the non-metals generally speaking. Once you have located the group A elements, we are going to count across, giving each column a number like this. The first A column is 1, then counting across 2 to 8, skipping the B group which consists of metals. In the periodic table, we labeled the 8th column as 0. However, when counting electrons, we will count it as 8. Now, we can determine how many valence electrons each element has in its outermost shell. The elements in the 1A column have 1 valence electron, the elements in the 2A column have 2 bonding electrons, and so on. By the time we get to the noble gases, the column labeled 0, we are up to 8 bonding electrons. This means that these gases can stand on their own or donate electrons to another element, but they cannot accept any more electrons because the electrons have to satisfy the octet rule, the octet and duet rules. In bonding, everything is based on how many electrons an element has or shares with its compound partner or partners. The octet rule is followed by most elements, and it says that to be stable, an atom needs to have 8 electrons in its outermost shell. Electrons that do not follow the octet rule are hydrogen, helium, boron, lithium and beryllium. Sometimes lithium gives up an electron, whereas the other elements listed here gain one. These elements instead follow the duet rule, which says that the atoms only need 2 valence electrons to be stable. When bonding, stability is always considered and preferred. Therefore, atoms bond in order to become more stable than they already are. Not all atoms bond the same way. So, we need to learn the different types of bonds that atoms can form. There are 5 types of chemical bonds are recognized. They are ionic, covalent, metallic, van der Waals and hydrogen bonds. There are 5 types of bonds. They are ionic bonding, covalent bonding, metallic bonding, van der Waals bonding and hydrogen bonding. Now, let us discuss ionic bonding. Atoms with large difference in electronegativity results in ionic bond. Electronegativity is the quantitative representation of an atom's ability to attract an electron to itself. The electronegativity of atoms of value 1.7 and above qualifies a bond to be ionic. Ionic bonds often occur between metals and salts. Chloride is often the bonding salt. Compounds displaying ionic bonds form ionic crystals, in which ions of positive and negative charges hover near each other, but there is not always a direct one-to-one correlation between positive and negative ions. Ionic bonds can typically be broken through hydrogenation or the addition of water to a compound. Essentially, complete electron transfer from an element of low ionization energy, metal, like metal, to an element of high affinity for electrons, that is non-metal. 2Na solid plus Cl2 gas give rise to 2Na, that is sodium plus 2Cl minus. Therefore, ionic compounds exist primarily between metals at left of periodic table, that is groups 1A and 2A and transition metals, and non-metals at right, O and halogens. Covalent bonds are formed when there is small difference in the nearly insignificant electronegativity values of 2 atoms. The value of difference in electronegativity between 2 atoms in a covalent bond is less than 1.7. Covalent bonds often form between similar atoms, non-metal to metal or metal to metal. Complete sharing of electrons occurs in covalent bond. There is usually a direct correlation between positive and negative ions, meaning that because they share electrons, the atoms balance. Covalent bonds are usually strong because of this direct bonding. The bond arises from the mutual attraction of 2 nuclei for the same electrons. Electron sharing results. Comparison of properties of ionic and covalent compounds. Because of the nature of ionic and covalent bonds, the materials produced by those bonds tend to have quite different macroscopic properties. The atoms of covalent materials are bound tightly to each other in stable molecules, but those molecules are generally not very strongly attracted to other molecules in the material. On the other hand, the atoms or ions in the ionic materials show strong attractions to other ions in their vicinity. This generally leads to low melting points for covalent solids and high melting points for ionic solids. For example, The molecule carbon tetrachloride is a non-polar covalent molecule CCl4. Its melting point is 23 degrees centigrade. By contrast, the ionic solid NaCl has a melting point of 800 degrees centigrade. Now, we will see the difference between ionic compounds and covalent compounds. Ionic compounds are crystalline solids made of ions, whereas covalent compounds are gases, liquids or solids made of molecules. Ionic compounds have high melting and boiling points, whereas covalent compounds have low melting and boiling points. Ionic compounds conduct electricity when melted, whereas covalent compounds are poor electrical conductors in all phases. Ionic compounds have many soluble in water, but not in non-polar liquid. Covalent compounds are soluble in non-polar liquids, but not in water. Metallic bonding. Alkali reactive force, that is the reaction between molecules within metals, produces metallic bond. Lattice of positive ions shares the sea of dispersed electrons, and these electrons acts as a gum, and this gives the substance a definite structure. The high melting point and boiling point in metals is attributed to the strong attractive force between the electrons and the positive ions. The principle is similar to that of ionic bonds. The physical properties of metals such as strength, malleability, ductility, luster, conduction of heat and electricity are due to metallic bond in them. Electrons move freely in metals independent of the positive charge, and thus metal gains some electrical conductivity. It allows the energy to pass quickly through the electrons, generating a current. Heat conduction works on the same principle. In metallic bonded substances, the transfer of energy is faster due to free electrons than the substances which are covalently bonded. The non-metals like graphite are good conductor of electricity. The reason is, like metals, they have free electrons, and the conduction of electricity is more in aqueous ionic compounds and molten material, as they contain free moving ions. Strength of the bond. In metals, high energy is required to dissociate the strong attractive force between the atoms of the metal. Therefore, metals often have high boiling points. With tungsten, with a boiling point of 5828 degree Kelvin being extremely high. A remarkable exception are the elements of the zinc group, zinc, cadmium and mercury. Their electronic configuration ends in Ns2, and this comes to resemble a noble gas configuration like that of helium more and more when going down in the periodic table, because the energy distance to the empty NP orbitals becomes larger. These metals are therefore relatively volatile and are avoided in the ultra high vacuum systems. Otherwise, metallic bonding can be very strong even in molten metals such as gallium. Even though gallium will melt from the heat of one's hand just above room temperature, its boiling point is not far from that of copper. Molten gallium is therefore a very non-volatile liquid thanks to its strong metallic bonding. Directionality of the bonding is lacking in metals due to its delocalization of electrons in all directions. There is typically a preference for close packing of the atoms, such as face or body centered cubic arrangements. But in the case of liquid gallium, the stacking is not regular, at least not at long range, and bond angles are easily changed. Given high enough cooling rates and appropriate alloy composition, metallic bonding can occur even in glasses with an amorphous structure. Much biochemistry is mediated by the weak interaction of metal ions and biomolecules. Such interactions and their associated conformational change has been measured using dual polarization interferometry. Solubility and compound formation. Water and organic solvents cannot dissolve metals unless a reaction takes place in them. Typically, this is an oxidation reaction that takes. However, metals are often readily soluble in each other while retaining the metallic character of their bonding. Gold, for example, dissolves easily in mercury even at room temperature. Even in solid metals, the solubility can be extensive. If the structures of the two metals are the same, there can even be complete solid solubility, as in the case of an electrum. The alloys of silver and gold. At times, however, two metals will form alloys with different structures than either of the two parents. One could call these materials metal compounds, but because materials with metallic bonding are typically not molecular, Dalton's law of integral proportions is not valid, and often a range of stoichiometric ratios can be achieved. It is better to abandon such concepts as pure substance or solute in such cases and speak of phases instead. The study of such phases has traditionally been more the domain of metallurgy than of chemistry, although the two fields overlap considerably. Optical properties. Light, we know that, is the physical cause of sensation of sight. It consists of a combination of an electrical and magnetic field. In metallic bonding, electrons are excited by the electrical field. The result is that photons are not able to penetrate very far into the metal and are typically reflected. They bounce off, although some may also be absorbed. This holds equally for all photons of the visible spectrum, which is why metals are often silvery white or grayish with the characteristic specular reflection of metallic luster. The balance between reflection and absorption determines how white or how gray they are, although surface tarnish can obscure such observations. Silver, a very good metal with high conductivity, is one of the whitest. Notable exceptions are reddish copper and yellowish gold. The reason for their color is that there is an upper limit to the frequency of the light that metallic electrons can readily respond to, the Plasmon frequency. At the Plasmon frequency, the frequency dependent dielectric function of the free electron gas goes from negative, that is reflecting, to positive, that is transmitting. Higher frequency photons are not reflected at the surface and do not contribute to the color of the metal. There are some materials like indium tin oxide, that is ITO, that are metallic conductors, actually degenerate semiconductors, for which this threshold is in the infrared. That is why they are transparent in the visible, but good mirrors in the IR range or infrared range. For silver, the limiting frequency is in the far ultraviolet range, but for copper and gold, it is closer to the visible. This explains the color of these two metals. At the surface of a metal, resonance effects known as surface plasmons can result. Surface plasmon resonance (SPR) is the collective oscillation of electrons in a solid or liquid stimulated by incident light. The resonance condition is established when the frequency of light photons matches the natural frequency of surface electrons oscillating against the restoring force of positive nuclei. SPR in nanometer sized structures is called localized surface plasmon resonance. They are collective oscillations of the conduction electrons like a ripple in the electronic ocean. However, even if photons have enough energy, they usually do not have enough momentum to set the ripple in motion. Therefore, plasmons are hard to excite on a bulk metal. This is why gold and copper still look like lustrous metals, albeit with a dash of color. However, in colloidal gold, the metallic bonding is confined to a tiny metallic particle, preventing the oscillation wave of the plasmon from running away. The momentum selection rule is therefore broken, and the plasmon resonance causes an extremely intense absorption in the green with a resulting beautiful purple red color. Such colors are orders of magnitude more intense than ordinary absorptions seen in dyes and the like that involve individual electrons and their energy states. The next type of bonding is the van der Waals bonding. Electrostatic forces control the attraction of the water molecules in liquid water, and these forces have been described as van der Waals forces or van der Waals bonds. Even though the water molecule as a whole is electrically neutral, the distribution of charge in the molecule is not symmetrical and leads to a dipole moment, a macroscopic separation of the positive and negative charge centers. This leads to a net attraction between such polar molecules, which finds expression in the cohesion of water molecules and contributes to viscosity and surface tension. Perhaps it is fair to say that van der Waals forces are what holds water in the liquid state until thermal agitation becomes violent enough to break those van der Waals bonds at 100 degrees centigrade. With cooling, residual electrostatic forces between molecules cause most substances to liquefy and eventually solidify, with the exception of helium, which never becomes a solid at atmospheric pressure. Even non-polar molecules experience some van der Waals bonding, which can be attributed to their being polarizable. Even though the molecules do not have permanent dipole moments, they can have instantaneous dipole moments, which change or oscillate with time. These fluctuations of molecular dipole moments lead to a net attraction between molecules, which allow non-polar substances like carbon tetrachloride to form liquids. Examination of the dipole electric field shows that the electric field from one instantaneous dipole will tend to polarize a neighboring molecule such that it will be attracted, sort of the electrical analog to a bar magnet magnetizing a paper clip so that it will be attracted to the magnet. This happens regardless of which pole of the magnet is brought close to the paper clip. The weaker van der Waals forces in non-polar liquids may be manifested in low surface tension and low boiling points. The next type of bonding is the hydrogen bonding. The intermolecular force creates hydrogen bonding. Hydrogen bonding differs from other types of bond since it is a force of attraction between a hydrogen atom in one molecule and a small atom of high electronegativity in another molecule. That is, it is an intermolecular force, not an intramolecular force, as in the common use of the word bond. When hydrogen atoms are joined in a polar covalent bond with a small atom of high electronegativity such as O, F or N, the partial positive charge on the hydrogen is highly concentrated because of its small size. If the hydrogen is close to another oxygen, fluorine or nitrogen in another molecule, then there is a force of attraction termed a dipole-dipole interaction. This attraction or hydrogen bond can have about 5% to 10% of the strength of a covalent bond. Hydrogen bonding has a very important effect on the properties of water and ice. Hydrogen bonding is also very important in proteins and nucleic acids and therefore in life processes. The unzipping of DNA is a breaking of hydrogen bonds which help hold the two strands of the double helix together. Hydrogen bonds only form between hydrogen and oxygen, nitrogen or fluorine. Hydrogen bonds are very specific and lead to certain molecules having special properties due to these types of bonds. Hydrogen bonding sometimes results in the element that is not hydrogen, oxygen for example, having a lone pair of electrons on the atom, making it polar. Lone pairs of electrons are non-bonding electrons that sit in pairs on the central atom of the compound. Water for example, exhibits hydrogen bonding and polarity as a result of the bonding. This is shown in the diagram. Because of this polarity, the oxygen end of the molecule would repel negative atoms like itself, while attracting positive atoms like nitrogen. Hydrogen, which becomes slightly positive, would repel positive atoms like other hydrogen atoms and attract negative atoms such as oxygen atoms. This positive and negative attraction system helps water molecules stick together, which is what makes the boiling point of water high, as it takes more energy to break these bonds between water molecules. Now, we will come to the last module of this lecture, that is conclusions. Chemical bonds helps us to understand the chemistry of the crystals. Ionic bonded crystals exhibit hardness and high melting point, but their electrical conductivity is low. Covalent bond produce definite geometrical configuration of the atoms. This results in rigid structure. Freely moving valence electrons in the metal results in high electrical conductivity in metallic bonds. Van der Waals bonds produce mostly odd shaped molecules, and crystals are characteristically soft and are of low melting temperature. Unlike other chemical bonds, hydrogen bond is an intermolecular force which is helping in keeping the molecules together. Hydrogen bond helps to hold the two strands of the DNA molecules, and also it helps in holding the molecules of proteins and nucleic acids together. Thank you very much.